This is CGTN, China Global Television Network. Live from London, this is The World Today.
Hello, I'm Jamie Owen. Welcome to the program. Our top stories. Thousands of people flee for safety in Canada's Northwest Territories as wildfires near the outskirts of the city of Yellowknife. Our other headlines, China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi hosts his Danish counterpart as part of a 3-day visit to Beijing. West African leaders stand firm on the threat of military intervention in Niger as defense chiefs hold a second day of talks on the coup crisis. And thrilling tournament, millions of viewers and $500 million in revenue. But women's football is still a long way from winning equality. Thousands of people in Yellowknife in Canada's Northwest Territories are fleeing for safety as wildfires there continue to spread. Meteorologists are warning that rain forecast may not be enough to extinguish the flames, meaning the fires will likely reach the outskirts of the city this weekend. In the province of British Columbia, where blazes are also raging, the authorities say the next 48 hours will be crucial. Our correspondent Li Jianhua reports.
So this isn't any photo magic. This looks like nighttime in the day.
It's like a scene from Dante's Inferno. Canada's Northwest Territories is enduring another day of raging wildfires. Nearly 20,000 residents of Yellowknife are rushing to escape by car and plane. Officials say without rain, the fire could reach the outskirts of the city by Saturday.
It's quite scary because with the smoke, of course, it's actually lightened up a little bit, but the smoke was very, very thick this morning. And so, I mean, it's not a good situation.
Evacuation flights are taking people to Calgary in the neighboring province of Alberta.
We moved up to Yellowknife in 1976. We've never, ever seen a wildfire season like this. The communication has been very, very good. Nobody has panicked. It was just a matter of, well, we're going to need to leave. A lot of people left yesterday morning before the actual evacuation order came.
Officials say 22 planes are scheduled to take about 1,800 more people to safety. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says he's spoken with the city's mayor and vowed to provide support. The province of British Columbia has also received a request from Northwest Territories to help evacuate healthcare patients. But wildfires are also raging there, with local authorities saying they face the most challenging 24 to 48 hours of summer.
I do encourage people who live in high-risk areas to reach out to family and friends who may be able to provide shelter in other areas of the province. Make those arrangements now as part of your emergency plan.
This has been Canada's worst wildfire season on record, with over 1,000 active blazes burning across thousands of kilometers, and fire officials are warning of unwanted winds, meaning critical days are ahead. Li Jianhua, CGTN.
The head of emergency services on the Hawaiian island of Maui has resigned a day after saying he had no regrets about not using sirens to warn residents of wildfires that killed at least 111 people. There's been widespread criticism over the government's response, especially in the town of Lahaina. Getting essential supplies there is proving difficult, but hundreds of volunteers have helped those worst affected. Our correspondent Greg Navarro reports.
Hi, Auntie.
Monica Schmidt was willing to direct a seemingly never-ending line of cars in the blistering heat for hours.
Keep coming. They'll come follow you, okay?
For one simple yet powerful reason.
I've seen some eyes well up, but you know that's why I'm just trying to smile and make sure that they have something to smile about today.
because the people slowly working their way through this makeshift drive-through,
we're all kind of in a fog right now.
Lost everything in the deadly Lahaina fire.
They lost their homes, some have lost their cars, they're staying with friends, their family are in the shelter. They don't have food, some don't have power.
That's why the shopping center parking lot has been transformed into an essential services center. More than 1 million kilos of donated food and supplies, critical supplies, are being handed out entirely by volunteers.
Teachers, they're builders, they're surfers, they're paddlers, they're healthcare workers, they're just volunteers who just want to take care of all of the folks who've been displaced.
Some of the volunteers who've worked in this tent over the past week are actually from Lahaina. They not only have a very close link to people streaming through in their vehicles, organizers say some of them have also lost everything.
Some people have lost grandparents, some people have lost their homes also, and siblings' homes.
Volunteers say being here also helps them to cope.
Aloha, are you folks doing okay today?
With the devastation that surrounds them.
There's so much collective trauma that we feel island-wide of all the loss and the pain, that this is a way to use all of that pain to at least be of service.
By helping the people of Lahaina any way they can. Greg Navarro, CGTN, Lahaina.
A wildfire on the Spanish island of Tenerife has slowed its advance. Officials say it's thanks to their containment efforts and the weather. There have been no new evacuations overnight, and authorities are considering lifting restrictions for nearly 4,000 people ordered to stay at home. But there are warnings that the wind could still pick up and fan the flames. The fire broke out on Wednesday and has burned through nearly 4,000 hectares of land. Flash flooding has inundated homes in the Argentinian city of La Plata. Residents were ordered to leave after the region recorded its highest daily rainfall for August in 6 decades. More than 15 centimetres of water fell on the city. Sea levels in the southwest Pacific Ocean are rising faster than the global average. That's according to the World Meteorological Organization. It says the increase is about 4 millimeters a year in some areas, threatening low-lying territories like Tuvalu and the Solomon Islands. Recent marine heat waves are also damaging ecosystems and the livelihoods of communities. China's President Xi Jinping will attend the BRICS summit in South Africa's Johannesburg as he makes a state visit to the country next week. Leaders from the 5 BRICS countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa, are set to discuss global economic growth and the expansion of the group. Russia's President Vladimir Putin will take part, but via video link. Denmark's foreign minister is meeting China's foreign minister Wang Yi in Beijing. It's the second day of Lars Løkke Rasmussen's 3-day trip to China, where he's met various officials with cooperation on green energy initiatives topping their agenda. The conflict in Ukraine is also set to be on the talks agenda. Well, let's talk now to CGTN's correspondent Dong Shui, watching events for us in Beijing. Dong Shui, do we know any more about what's being discussed between the 2 foreign ministers at this meeting?
Well, sure. For the meeting between Chinese senior diplomat Wang Yi and Minister Rasmussen, the green collaboration and global security have obviously topped their agenda. Well, specifically, the 2 signed, or I should say, renewed a joint green cooperation work program. It was part of a joint work program first launched in 2017. The overall purpose will be bilateral cooperation on the implementation of the UN's global goals for sustainable development, and an important focus area is expected to be sustainable green transformation across all sectors, and that include to strengthen, cooperation on renewable energy, mainly through technical assistance and policy formulation, and share and transfer knowledge and experience regarding the development of thermal power stations between Danish and Chinese companies, institutions, and universities, and continue dialogue to exchange knowledge of best practices and information on sustainable urban development, with a special emphasis on the use of sustainable energy and district heating, and promoting bilateral cooperation in the field of energy efficiency. And the list goes on, especially in the areas of green transformation, as I mentioned earlier, And besides the Green Work Program, the two ministers also engaged in discussions on major global issues. These include talks on the status of China-EU relations, regional security concerns, as well as the Ukraine crisis, with Wang Yi reiterating China's position on promoting peace talks and working to build a sustainable security framework in Europe. Back to you in the studio.
Dong Shui in Beijing, thank you very much. Russian and Chinese warships are conducting joint maritime patrols in the Pacific. A range of exercises are said to be underway. Defense chiefs in Moscow say these include rescue training and airstrike and submarine attack drills. It's claimed the detachment of vessels has travelled over 6,000 miles in the East China Sea since the patrols began. China's defense ministry says the initiative was not related to the current international and regional situation. A cargo ship that left the port of Odessa on Wednesday through a Ukrainian-brokered safe corridor has now arrived in Istanbul. The Hong Kong-registered vessel reached its destination after Russian naval officers stormed a Turkish ship in the Black Sea on Sunday. Moscow withdrew from a United Nations brokered deal last month, allowing the transfer of grain ships across the Black Sea. The Kremlin says it can no longer guarantee the safety of vessels leaving Ukrainian ports. An exhibition centre in Moscow has been damaged in a drone attack blamed on Ukraine. The city's mayor says the expo centre complex was hit by falling debris after a device was shot down early on Friday. Moscow's international airport at Vnukovo was briefly closed after this incident. It's the latest in a series of drone strikes targeting the commercial and business district of the Russian capital, which the Kremlin says are planned attacks by Kyiv. West African leaders are standing firm on the threat of military intervention in Niger as the regional bloc ECOWAS holds a second day of talks on the crisis. Defense chiefs meeting in Ghana's capital, Accra, are urging Niger's coup leaders to choose peace and stand down. The United Nations has repeated its condemnation of the generals who detained the president and then seized power last month.
The very notion of freedoms in Niger is at stake. President Bazoum was the first democratically elected president in the country's coup-prone history in 2021. Generals cannot take it upon themselves to defy, at a whim, the will of the people. Rule by gun has no place in today's world.
Our correspondent Ajek Mangut is in Abuja. Ajek, what more have we heard from this meeting?
Well, it's the second day of the meeting of defense chiefs in Accra, where they're preparing to finalize the details for the activation of a standby force. We understand that that includes what they call the logistic concept and also preparations for engagement, which has to do with reconnaissance and initial deployment to Niger. We also understand that the ECOWAS has standby troops made up of a few thousand troops which have gone into Gambia in 2017 when the president there wanted to hold on to power after losing elections. And so at the end of today's meeting, we should expect to hear if this force or if these troops the number would be increased. We expect that at the end of the meeting there would be a communique giving out concrete details in terms of the number of countries that will be contributing troops to this standby force. But at the end of the first day of the meeting, most of the ECOWAS countries pledge their commitment to contributing contributing their troops to this standby force, except of course the countries that are being ruled by the military. That's talking about Mali, Burkina Faso, and Guinea, who have pledged their support for the junta. But outside that, ECOWAS has said that military force would be used if all else fails to restore President Mohamed Bazoum. But we've seen some sort of concern and pushback, especially in countries like Nigeria and Ghana. In Ghana, the opposition lawmakers have warned the president against contributing Ghanaian troops. And Nigeria's president, who is also the chair of the ECOWAS regional bloc, the lawmakers here have also rejected a proposal to send Nigerian troops. We've also seen protests and concern because they are worried that an intervention could lead to a breakout of war and have impact on the West Africa region and the humanitarian crisis in Niger.
Ajak, thank you for that. Our correspondent Ajak Mangut in Abuja. You're watching CGTN. Still ahead. Whose mountains are they anyway? The dangerous friction between wild animals and humans living in close proximity in Italy.
Ever wondered what's the difference between a bear and a bull market? Where are the cash cows? And who are the lame ducks? And what exactly are black swans, grey rhinos, and unicorn companies? Make sense of it all with Global Business, only on CGTN.
There's a new agenda for a new world, accelerating change in almost every part of our lives. It's shifting the norms of how we work, travel, and connect. How we think, interact, and develop. It's a new reality, a new agenda with me, Juliette Mann.
This week on Razor, searching for dark matter on the ground and far out in space.
Dark matter, we know, it's kind of matter that does not interact through the electromagnetic interaction with ordinary matter. And we know that such a specific kind of exotic matter exists from various cosmological evidence, astrophysical evidence, but we don't know what it's made of.
Hello, welcome back. A reminder of our top stories. Thousands of people flee for safety in Canada's Northwest Territories as wildfires near the outskirts of the city of Yellowknife. Our other headlines: West African leaders stand firm on the threat of military intervention in Niger as defense chiefs hold a second day of talks on the coup crisis. And Denmark's foreign minister holds talks in Beijing as part of a 3-day visit to China. FIFA's president, Gianni Infantino, says the Women's World Cup has generated more than $570 million in revenue and enabled world football's governing body to break even. England play Spain in the final on Sunday, and there's been record-breaking viewing figures and ticket sales. Infantino described this tournament as the best, greatest and biggest, and says it's a key moment in the fight for equality with the men's game.
Football unites the world, but we need to do more. We have to speak a little bit as well about the money. We have increased, of course, the contributions and prize money to $152 million. And when it comes to the level of service for the teams, the women's national teams and the men's national team had exactly the same level of service in terms of training camps, hotels, travel. So full equality has been reached.
Well, our correspondent Siobhan McCall has followed every twist and turn of this tournament. Well, many around the world watching that might not agree with his analysis. So is Infantino right that total equality has been achieved?
Well, Jamie, I think the fact that Infantino spent a significant part of this tournament on holidays probably gives some indication where we are in the battle for equality.
On his holidays?
On his holidays, yes. He had a nice break in between, and now he's back for the exciting part, the final. Well, actually, this is part of a big row that's happening in England at the moment. Of course, England in the final, but the Prince of Wales, who is the president of England's Football Association, is not attending the final. Now, he got criticised for that. The Palace say it's for climate change reasons, but the criticism has been ranked up by the fact that Spain's Queen and her daughter are heading over to Sydney to cheer on the Spain team. And I think another of Infantino's comments in his press conference that's really frustrated people is the fact that he's talked about women pushing doors, men being ready to be receptive to women's football, but they need to push forward with it. And what we've seen over the last few years is actually that women's football has to prove something before the investment comes, whereas men's football tends to be based on potential. So, for example, the England team. Let's look at how the trophies compare. The men's team, they've won one World Cup in 1966. They haven't won anything since. The women's team, in the last year, they are closing in on their third trophy. They won the Euros last year. They won another competition called the Finalissimas. Apologies about my pronunciation. And they could be world champions on Sunday. But the women were only given a significant investment in grassroots football after they won that Euro 2022 competition, whereas the men's team have had that sort of long-term plan, they've had that long-term backing, and they haven't delivered on it yet. Another sense of frustration, and I feel we've spoken about this throughout the tournament, is the salary issue. Now, FIFA pointed out that, I should say the FA, the England FA, pointed out that players are paid the same when they play for England. But when it comes to the managers, it's a completely different case. So Gareth Southgate, the men's manager at the moment, he is on over $6 million a year. Sarina Wiegman, who's really been stealing the headlines in this competition, she's on $510,000. She's the one that's delivered the trophies. She is kind of the most successful, like the most high-profile coach in the women's game at the moment. And she's even been linked with the England men's job, but she's not been paid the same salary. And that question was put to the English FA, and they said, well, actually, you know, it's about competition in the men's game. We have to pay these huge salaries because otherwise they'll go elsewhere. So then we look at the clubs, and the discrepancy is even more. And this really is where the funding needs to come in. But take a look at the broadcast revenue, and it's worth pointing out that in England, the broadcast revenue is the highest in the world, but it's only 31 million. The men's is in the billions. So you can sense the frustration and the fact that the equality, yes, maybe fans are starting to see England or Spain as one country when it comes to football. They're not thinking this is a women's competition, this is a men's competition. But I think in terms of bringing things like salary together, bringing, you know, a seriousness about the women's tournaments, we're not there yet.
OK, now we know England have been one of the favourites throughout this tournament. What about Spain? What can you tell us?
Yes, England, Euro champions, everyone's kind of had their eye on them throughout the contest, but Spain have sort of been under the radar. And that's not to say that they're not a good side. They're actually ranked 6th in the world, so they're a really fantastic side. They've got some really star players. But the reason that they have kind of surprised everyone with getting to the final is because of a row going on between the players and the manager. So it started last year. 15 of the Spain squad actually sent in a letter to the Spanish Football Federation complaining about the manager, saying that their mental well-being on international duty was suffering. The Spanish Football Federation actually backed the manager. The players were told to apologise, and only 3 of them have come back into the team. But as the team have made it to the final, some fans are feeling, I suppose, quite conflicted because they agree with what, in their opinion, they agree with what the players are saying. And they feel if Spain wins this competition, it actually validates the manager. So there are some Spanish fans who don't want them to win this competition. But I think the sad thing about this row is it overshadows the good work that Spain as a country has been doing in the women's game. They are really one of the trailblazers, and they've done it in such a short time. Actually, I think that Spain and England in the final is really significant because it's 2 countries that really, you know, their fans have got behind their teams, the government has got behind the teams, and also I think that the Spanish club Barcelona have been really significant in this because actually the Women's League in Spain only went professional 2 years ago, but Barcelona have really worked on bringing youth players through. They are the highest revenue club in women's football. And it's going to be fantastic to see in the final on Sunday, whether it's England or Spain. It has been a really significant competition, and it is going to be a significant moment in the women's game.
Siobhan, thank you very much. Our correspondent, Siobhan McCall. Now, the Dolomite Mountains in Italy are known for breathtaking landscapes and an abundance of wild animals, but a fatal attack by a bear in April has led to some uncertainties surrounding the fate and the future of the animals in the region. Our correspondent Johannes Pleshberger reports.
I'm in the foothills of Monte Peler in the Val di Sole part of the Brenta Dolomites. It's popular year-round with holiday makers. It's a tranquil place, but back in April, jogger Andrea Papi was killed here. DNA samples revealed the culprit was a bear identified as JJ4, who was in the area with her cubs. JJ4 was captured almost 2 weeks after the attack on the jogger, before being sedated and taken here to the Casteller Animal Wildlife Center, a short distance from the city of Trento. And campaigners like Francesco Manzini from the Stop Casteller movement says it's a death row for animals.
The bear didn't attack simply to kill. It felt a danger for itself and its cubs. Here, we are punishing an animal using human rules.
But this was not JJ4's first offense. In 2020, she had attacked a father and son who were out hiking. The bear was supposed to be destroyed, but the decision was controversial and successfully overturned.
I think this was a mistake. This bear completely ruined the reputation of an entire bear population.
The rewilding project leaders were careful to select bears that were wild and avoided people. But in 2001, they introduced JJ4's mother, Jyrka, and she soon became what experts call a problem bear.
She started to get close to chicken coops and houses, scaring people. She became very annoying to the population.
In the early years, Jyrka and her cubs were blamed by Trentino's local authority for half of all bear-related damage in the area.
JJ4's brothers all were problem bears at some point. One was shot in Germany, one was shot in Switzerland, and they were all cubs from Jyrka.
The president of the Trentino region, Maurizio Fugatti, is calling for JJ4 to be destroyed as a mark of respect for Andrea Papi, but public opinion remains mixed.
If it's to leave him in a cage, I think it's better to be killed.
If a bear gets close to your house, you have to kill it.
The decision on JJ4's future is on hold until December, but the damage her fatal attack has done to trust among the locals and to the project as a whole may last a lot longer. Johannes Pleshberger, CGTN, Trento, Italy.
The headlines again. Thousands of people flee for safety in Canada's Northwest Territories as wildfires near the outskirts of the city of Yellowknife. Our other headlines: Denmark's foreign minister holds talks in Beijing as part of a 3-day visit to China. And West African leaders stand firm on the threat of military intervention in Niger as defense chiefs hold a second day of talks on the coup crisis. And that is the world today. Thank you for watching. There's more news on CGTN Europe's channel, on the Telegram app, or scan the QR code on the screen to get stories and updates sent direct to your phone. We're back with more news at the top of this hour. Coming up next, it's World Insight. For now, from all of the team in London, it's goodbye.